Hollywood creatives are out of ideas. The creatives aren't creating content people want, and they're so politically driven, it's tiring people out. And now in Amazon's animated adaptation of Invincible, characters are race swapped, and the co-creator, Robert Kirkman, is saying it's because a couple of dumb white guys made it, one of them being himself. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and live streams I create, consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So starting off with this Bounding into Comics article, it says, according to series co-creator Robert Kirkman, the decision to race swap a number of core characters in Amazon's animated adaptation of Invincible was born out of his personal belief that he and artist Ryan Ottley failed to make the original comics sufficiently diverse, particularly by modern standards. So there is a slew of problems here. First and foremost, Amazon's animated adaptation. Amazon over the past few years has put out a lot of very bad content, and specifically when we're talking about adaptations, right? We see the Wheel of Time adaptation, which went very poorly, Rings of Power, which went very poorly, and this is a little bit different because, of course, Robert Kirkman did have a hand in this series, and of course he is one of the co-creators, but at the same time, Amazon and a lot of their content has a very clear message behind it, and that's basically if we're buying it and we're creating it, we're diversifying it, we're modernizing it, and these are things that I personally do not support. Now, of course, he is going to bring up that it was, at least the original, was not sufficiently diverse, particularly by modern standards, and this is another red flag, modern standards. Why are you adapting something if you don't think that it reaches, modern standards when it comes to things like inclusivity and diversity? Why not just go and create something new? Of course, it ultimately boils down to notoriety. People know this name, people know Invincible, people will probably watch it simply because of the name and they will give it a chance. But it's pathetic. We've seen this happen time and time again. And the worst part about all of this is it's Robert Kirkman. Of course, he has created some pretty good content in the past, most notably The Walking Dead, and to see him do this now, it just makes me not want to ever rewatch The Walking Dead. It makes me not want to support The Walking Dead or Invincible, basically anything that he's created. But it says, as can be confirmed by audiences who engaged with both iterations of the hero's story, a total of 3 members of Invincible's cast were subjected to Hollywood's favorite method of virtue signaling. I do not go into any show or movie, any kind of adaptation in general, without questioning what's going to be different, what's going to be changed, because it's either story elements that push the boundaries and make people feel uncomfortable, or it's casting decisions because, of course, things lacked inclusivity or diversity. Every adaptation lately has some sort of change, and in this one, it is with the main characters. It says, first and foremost, apparently was Amber Bennett, the first love interest of the series' eponymous protagonist, making her proper debut in the Image series' 8th issue. Amber was originally depicted as a blonde white woman, and of course, blonde white woman no more. She is not this because in the animated series, her appearance was instead inverted, with the character now sporting raven hair and black skin. And to make it even worse, she also was given a whole new personality. That to me is almost worse in most cases, because sometimes you can race swap a character and the actor, or in this case the voice actor, does a good job and the character still comes alive. And while I do not support most race swaps still, I think that they can be pulled off a little bit easier if the character still feels like the original character, even if they don't look that way. Because if you have a character that still captures the essence of the original and acts the same way, has the same backstory, you still can look at it and go, well, in this case, that's my Amber, but that's not what's happening here. Of course, they gave her an entirely new personality. rather than the Amber who, though always fearful for his safety, was always understanding of her one-time boyfriend's superhero lifestyle. Amazon presented audience with a version of the character who took outright offense to the fact that Invincible did not reveal his secret to her just a few weeks after dating. And this is like a very bad trope now, because we saw the same exact thing recently happen with Superman and Lois. The new Lois in the animated was mad and furious at Superman slash Clark for not revealing his secret identity to her. I don't know why this is like a thing now. You had the once very understanding, compassionate girlfriend slash love interest, and now they just are very salty and very hostile. But of course, this is not the only change. It, of course, says where their comic book selves were both white, with Mark Grayson and his mother Debbie, and their animated versions have been explicitly confirmed as being of Korean descent. It says, though, speaking to TV Guide ahead of the Amazon series' upcoming second season, Kirkman revealed that despite the backlash these changes had received, much of it born from fans' disappointment that the series' first foray into a new medium would be less than accurate to the characters and stories they had loved for nearly 2 decades, they believed the result was a net positive for the representation. So, it says we have to recognize that a couple of dumb white guys made this comic book in the early 2000s, and there was a real lack of diversity in that series. And also, with the Invincible character himself, we talked to fans at all of the conventions and places we would go, and because his ethnicity was ambiguous in the comics, everyone identified with him. We would have Filipino fans come up and say, "I'm so excited you made Mark Filipino." We would have Mexican fans come up and say, "We're so excited that you made Mark Mexican," which of course is great that people can identify with this character, but of course that is still absurd because you don't need to see an exact copy of yourself to relate to something, and there are people out there like Robert Kirkman here who constantly push that, well, we need to diversify our lineup so people can relate. You don't need to self-insert or see a carbon copy to appreciate the character, and I'm not claiming that that is exactly a case of, self-insertion here since he's white and changing white characters, but it's the false impression that to be able to relate it has to look exactly like you, which is utter BS. He's been involved with series people loved, and there's no reason why he couldn't have just gone to the drawing board and made something new that shows the way the world should be while including things that people love. Or of course, is it simply like the rest of Hollywood where he's out of ideas, so the only thing he can do is manipulate everything he's done? I mean, it seems pretty clear to most of us at this point. He is literally calling himself dumb and trashing his own work, but also fans who love the original version of these characters, because by changing them, you're not only insulting your own work, but you're also insulting fans who have supported it for years. And of course, their response is always, well, if you don't like it, maybe you're the racist. Their original race didn't matter, and we decided to change it because, in this case, it's to basically meet modern audiences' expectations. But if that's the case, then why don't you ever take black characters and race swap them and make them white? Because you would never do that. They would erase every white character in the world, yet they'd never dare change the race of a non-white character to white. And yet they say that that's not racism, that, oh, we can't be racist against white people. Oh yeah, but we're just erasing all of these white characters. I mean, their mentality is absurd. He also went on to say that you end up being in this bubble where you have no awareness of what it's like to live in a world where you're not seeing yourself reflected and all of these other things. So to be able to, in any small part, work against that is a tremendous honor, the writer concluded. It's always the white guys that are virtue signalers. He didn't have to race swap them. He's a comic book creator. He could have made an entirely new series, yet instead he decided to just do this, which is complain about the past and now alter the the characters that fans love and fans know. Are they out of creative energy because if he had any creative juice left, instead of mangling these characters, he could have simply just made new ones. And this is something that we have seen time and time again, and people are sick and tired of seeing this happen. Of course, Bounding Into Comics did put up a tweet about this, and the thread is filled with people attacking the situation, saying that this is just awful of him to do, to attack his work, to basically attack fans of this work. It's just not a good situation overall. This doesn't make you look any better. All it does is make you push consumers away. The only way to do this virtue signal and get their ESG score up, there was no reason why Amber should have been race swapped other than to meet a diversity quota. I mean, that's basically Hollywood in a nutshell. At this point, they will change every character in every piece of entertainment if they have to get that ESG score up in order to meet that diversity quota and check off boxes. It is sad to see, though not very surprising at this point given the trajectory of Hollywood, and this is why a lot of people do not care about the writer strikes, because you have writers like this coming out attacking the very things that they created, attacking fan bases, basically saying, well, it's your problem if you don't like it. And, you know, it was just a bunch of dumb white guys that made this comic book in the early 2000s. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.